We did not finish the first Mishnah yet about what the people of the Great Assembly said. So the people of the Great Assembly, they said three things. Number one, they said, oh, one second, this is all crooked here. So how do I make this straight? 1 minute. Excuse me. Okay, let's see if this is any better. Is it better? Yes. All right. Here we go. The people of the Great Assembly, the men of the Great Assembly, these were the wise men that were in the beginning of the Second Temple. And they said three things. What did they say? Be very patient when you judge, and also when you learn Torah. Make a lot of pupils. Very important. There should be a lot of people learning Torah. And asu sayag laTorah, and make a fence around the Torah. What does it mean, made a fence around the Torah? That's where we got up to yesterday. Okay, ready? Asu sayag laTorah. Very good. See, did you see? Where are you now? Here we go. No, here we go. But this, what you have over here, this is Bar Tanura. This is Rabbi Bar Tanura. Oh, and underneath you have
Kahati.
No. This is only the Bar Tanura you have here.
There's Bir Kahati here.
Oh, Bir Kahati. Okay, this then is the second Mishnah. You want to go back to the first Mishnah?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, very good. And now you have the end of the first one. Here it is. Also, Sayig laTorah. So Torah Mishnah Aleph. Go down to the bottom. Talmidim. Go on further down.
Well, that's where it stops.
Okay, so this is the Bar Tanura. This is Bar Tanura. This is not Kahati.
Oh, maybe I have to change it.
What you have here is not Kahati. So,
I'm checking.
I mean, the previous one you had was Kahati, and this is not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't
All
have
right.
it.
You with me?
Yeah.
What you had before in the previous one, that was Kahati. At least it said Kahati on the bottom. I didn't see his commentary, but at least it said the words Kahati there. All right, we're now in the end of the first Mishnah, where it says, Asu sayag laTorah. Good? Okay, Herschel, are you with us?
I'm with you, Rabbi.
Great, wonderful. Do you have the Mishnah
I
by
have,
any chance?
I have the Kahati, also Siyag Torah.
Asu sayag laTorah. There we are. Okay, good.
And I have an English translation.
English translation is also good. Okay, Yosef Yisrael, can we start?
Second.
Asu sayag laTorah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the people of the Great Assembly said you have to be calm, patient, thorough when you're learning. Matunim bedin, and when you're judging others, the same thing. Calm, patient, and thorough. Also, they said make a lot of pupils. What does it mean, make a lot of pupils? Don't be too hard on the pupils. Don't look for perfection. Don't look for perfection. Make a lot of pupils. Afterwards, you can see which pupils are good. You can see what not, but in the beginning, accept everybody. Make a lot of pupils. And the next one is Asu sayag laTorah. Make a fence around the Torah. Ready? Gader v'harchaka. Make a fence and a distance. What do you mean distance? Shalo yavo liyadei isur shel Torah. Keep people, make laws that people will keep far from sinning. In other words, tell everybody what the sins are, but there should be also laws in order to show how important it is to keep far away from the sins. Like it says, Ushamartem es mitzmortai, that you have to protect my negative commandments. Mishmarti means my negative commandments. The Dorshu Chachamim and the wise men say, Asu mishmeret lemishmarti. You have to make a fence around my fences. In other words, God says there's certain things I don't want you to do. The wise men have to, first of all, educate everyone what's permissible and what's forbidden. And then they have an obligation to make laws to keep people away. Let's take one of the classic examples, and that is on Shabbat, there's a law called muktzah. What does it mean, muktzah on Shabbos? There are things, for instance, on Shabbat, you are not allowed to write, but you are allowed to touch a pen on Shabbat. On Shabbat, you're not allowed to do business, but technically you're allowed to touch money on Shabbat. Well, the wise men came and said, no, you cannot touch money on Shabbat. Touch, you cannot move money on Shabbat with your hands. You cannot pick up a pen on Shabbat. It's muktzah. This is a law that the rabbis made. So you can say, well, I mean, they made it up on their own. It's very nice, but you can't expect me to do it. I mean, they let them do it. Why should I do it? He says, no, the reason they did it was because God himself wants them to make these laws. Mishmeret to the mishmeret. You have to make a fence around the negative commandments. The Torah comes, he's here, Beit Din, and it's telling the court, Sheyasu Takanot, that they should make laws. Gezerot, statutes. How do you call it? Statutes. Vigaderim, and fences. Kadei shi'ei adam nimna, so that a person would be prevented, mila avor al din Torah, from coming close to the negative commandments of the Torah. There's also what's called Avot, the Rabbi Natan. There's Rabbi Natan, he wrote his own explanation on Pirkei Avos. And it says, Aso sayig l'davorecha kadirech she'asa HaKadosh Baruch Hu sayig l'davorav. They say that you should make a fence around what you say, rabbis, make a fence around what you say, and be careful, the words that you put on around your mouth, the same way that Hashem is careful in what he says. Every word of God is exact. Your word should be exact also. That's what the Avot the Rav Natan. Here's another explanation, the Meiri. Meiri was also, he wrote a whole explanation on the Torah, a very genius person. Yearly, it seems to me, it was one of the Rishonim. Yearly, it seems to me, Bebir zeh shehu, he's here, liot kol adam. It means, says the Meiri, this law of making a fence around the Torah means that every person should watch what he says. Bal yichbir ashomim ba'em. Two things. Don't say too much and don't say too little. Kol shechein keshemedaber divrei Torah. When you speak the words of Torah, generally you shouldn't say too much. Don't say too, and especially when you say words of Torah, don't overdo it. Shelo yedaber b'hem ela b'zman aroi. That you should speak only in the proper time. B'shiras aroi, and the only proper amount. U'b'makom aroi, and the place that is the proper place. Sometimes you can say wonderful things, but you say it to the wrong person, or you say it at the wrong time, or you say it not in the right place. Sometimes you can say it too much. With the vorim aruim lo, and you have to speak in a manner which is fitting to the person that you are speaking to. Don't speak above his head. Don't make things too simple. The im mitzado, im mitzad shomi, both from your point of view. Don't speak in a manner that's too high for yourself. You want to make a good impression. So you say things that really aren't in your level. You don't use the words properly. And on the other hand, the people that you're speaking to, and it can be the other way around. Sometimes you'll speak too simply. You'll teach everybody in a manner that's too simple. There's a book which is called Mishlei Ariv. Interesting. I looked this up. There's a book which is called Mishlei Ariv. And Mishlei Ariv is a book that was written by a man that passed away, I don't know, 67 years ago, and his name was Yitzchak Yisrael Yehuda. Yitzchak Yisrael Yehuda, very interesting personality. He was a genius person, born in Egypt, and he moved to England. He moved to this and that. Anyway, he wrote a book, and the book, there's any interesting lessons you can learn, and here's one of them. Omru al chacham echad, and they said about one wise man, shahaya ma'arich b'divorav yoter midai. He would talk more than necessary. He would explain a simple idea, And he would take a long time to explain it. All sorts of examples he would give. Shalu oto, they asked him, Madua ata over hagavul larich kokach? Why do you go over normal, how do you say, laws of public speaking, and you're talking so much? Why do you have to speak so much? Could you have a crowd that are listening to you because you're a wise man? But why do you say so many words and talking so much? He said, I'll tell you why. So that if there's any fools in the crowd, simple people, so that everyone will be able to understand. Therefore, I speak very simple language and repeat myself a lot of times. They said, the simple people, maybe they'll understand, but the people that are a little bit intelligence, they won't have any patience for this. They're in the same thing, they'll get bored. Therefore, it's telling you, make a fence around what you say. What you say should be correct, but it shouldn't be too much. Don't make a fence around it. That what it says, that what it says, that you should make a fence around your word, just like God did. What does it mean? Just like God gave commandments. And the commandments are according to what people can bear, right? God doesn't have a commandment in the Torah. You have to cut off all your fingers. Where do your fingers come from? From me, right? When you have to take out your eyes. Where do your eyes come from? I gave you your eyes. You have to God doesn't ask a person to do those things. God gives commandments only in a way that a person can bear. According to a person's nature. Therefore, you yourself should do the same thing. Don't add too much and don't speak too little. That's what you should also measure what you say. Therefore, everything you do, you should measure your words, speak in a proper way, because speaking is very important. The whole idea of Torah is teaching. The word Torah means to teach. So when you teach, you have to understand your crowd, understand the pupils, understand who you're speaking to, understand what the conditions are, understand what their background is, make things interesting to them, but don't overdo it and don't underdo it. Make a fence around the Torah. Mishnah base. Shimon HaTzadik haya meshiri knesset hagedola. Shimon HaTzadik was the last of the men of the Great Assembly. Like we said before, the men of the Great Assembly lasted about 200 years into the Second Temple. The Second Temple altogether was 420 years. So half of that time, there was the men of the Great Assembly, and their level of wisdom got less and less until, less and less. These people preceded, like we said, the Tanaim, and this is the Tanaim, they were a lower level of holiness. It says even the lowest level of the Tanaim had the ability to raise the dead. So we understand what type of people we're dealing with. The last of the men of the Great Assembly was a man called Shimon HaTzadik. Shimon HaTzadik was a Kohen, and he served in the Holy Temple for about 40 years as the Kohen Gadol. He was a Kohen Gadol. He used to say three things. He left us a very important message. Al shlosha devorim ha'olam omed. On three things the world stands: on Torah, on avoda, and on gemilat chasadim. The world stands on three things: Torah, avoda. Avoda means the sacrifices, or as far as we're concerned, prayer, and gemilas chasadim, and doing favors for people. So we have Torah, avoda, and gemilas chasadim. Generally speaking, this also corresponds to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Avram was gemilas chasadim. He was very kind to people, took people into his tent, spread around joy. Avoda is service of prayer. That's from below to above. That's like Yitzchak. It says that Yitzchak, he changed the world. It was Gevurah, dug wells, water came from below to above. And Torah, that's Yaakov. Generally speaking, that's Yaakov. Because we have a question. Before we explain we have a question. What does it mean on these three things the world stands? I mean, what happened before these things? The Torah was given in about 2,500 years, 2,448 years after the world was created, the Torah was given. So how could the world stand? It says that the world stands on Torah. And Torah, and on avoda and serving God. Let's say the avoda existed before. It says that man made sacrifices and Noah, but Torah didn't exist until 400 years after the world was created. So how did it exist? So the answer is that there was Yaakov, and Yaakov, he was the level of Torah, and that's why the world could exist. Also, this shows the importance of the world. It says that these three things, Torah and a prayer and doing kindness, this is the foundation of the world. And as the world is on top of them, a foundation is usually lower. That's the basis of the world, right? What holds the world is higher. It's on top of these things. These are the base for the world. So we see how important that the world itself is. So let's do the Kahati, please. Shimon HaTzadik hayam Mishiri Knesset Gadola. Shimon HaTzadik was the last of the Achron Anshe Knesset Gadola. He was the last of the men of the Great Assembly. Huaya Omer, he used to say, Kach Huaya Regil Omer, this is what he used to say, Al Shlosha Devarim, I'm reading the Kahati now, please. And three things the world used to stands on Torah, Avoda means prayer, and Gemilat Chasadim, and acts of kindness. Bizachut Shlosha Devarim Elu, in the merit of these three things, Ha'olam Mitkayem, the world exists. Even though here it says the world stands, it says world, later on we're going to see that the world is Mitkayem. But the world stands, means the world exists. On the merit of learning Torah, and the merit of prayer, and the merit of acts of kindness. Let's take Torah first. Shekein Omer Razal, this is what the Chazal, what the Chachmenu, Zechrein Lebracha said, in the Gemara in Nedarim, Gedola Torah, the Torah is great, Shel Il Male Torah, that if it wasn't for the Torah, Lo Nitkayim Shemayim Oretz, the world would not exist. Shnei, like it says in Jeremiah, Imlo Briti, if it wasn't for my covenant, namely the Torah, Yom V'Layla, day and night, Chukot Shamayim Ba'oretz, the laws of the heavens and earth, Lo Samti, I would not put. Klomer, in other words, Ilmale, if it was not for the Torah, Shekatuvo, that it says in it, Lo Yamish Sefer Torah Zeh Mipicha, it should not stop the words of Torah from your mouth, and the Hegeto, and you should think about them day and night. Lo haya olam kayam, the world would not exist. It says in the creation of the world, in the beginning in Bereshis, is Vayerev Vayiboker Yom Rishon, Vayover Yom Sheni, Vayover Shlishi. When it comes to the sixth day, it says Vayiboker Vayerev Vayiboker Yom Ha-Shishi. The other rest doesn't say Ha. It says Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, Yom. On the sixth day of Christmas, it says Yom Ha-Shishi. Why Ha-Shishi? So Rashi explains. Ha-Shishi means that sixth day that's known. What's the sixth day that's known? The sixth day of Sivan. That was the day the Torah was given. And God said, if the Jews don't accept the Torah, then I'm going to turn the world back to nothing. Bezechut avodat karbanot. That's the Torah. Second thing is sacrifices. V'schol zaman she'avoda beit hamikdash. All the time that the Holy Temple was there, ha'olam mitbarech al yoshevav. The world is blessed. There's blessing on all of the inhabitants of the world. The geshamim yordim b'zmanim, and rain comes down in the proper time. Like it says in the Devarim, la'avdo b'chol avavechem b'chol nafshechem. You should serve God. We say it every day in the second chapter of the Tanya, second chapter of Shema. You should serve God with all of your heart and all of your soul. And v'natati mitar artzechem b'ito. I will give the rains in their time. But after the temple was destroyed, we don't have the sacrifices anymore. What do we have? We offer up ourselves in prayer. We put our heart to God. That's the service of what's called avoda. Other people say, avoda, what's avoda is not prayer so much, but it is doing the commandments in general. Some people say, no, what does it mean, Torah and avoda? What's avoda? Avoda mamish means working in the world. Torah and avoda, working in the world. We see how mad, how angry God was at the Jews when they didn't want to go into the land of Israel. The Jews in Parshas Shalach, in Bamidbar. Shalach, there's a terrible story that God took all the Jews to the border of Israel, And he said, okay, go into Israel. And Moshe said, listen, I'll send in some spies first. He sent in the spies to look around to see what's the best way to conquer the land of Israel. The spies came back and said, we can't do it. And all the Jewish people said, they're right, we're not going to do it, we're staying in the desert. And God got very angry at them because God wants avoda. He wants people to be in the world, work on the world, elevate the world. That's what it means. The world stands on these things. The world is in that way more important than Torah. That's why the soul comes into the world. This is avoda like harisha, like plowing, zuriya, planting, katsira, harvesting, etc. Shari al yadei avoda, by means of working in the physical world, nasa adam shutav l'kodesh baruch hu, man becomes a partner with God. B'maisa bereshis, in the creation of the world. God creates a world. He wants this world to be. He doesn't want us to leave it. So that's another meaning of the word avoda. So we have already 4 interpretations of what it means, Torah and avoda. What's avoda? One says avoda means the sacrifices. Another one says it means the prayers that we do. Prayers, avoda. Another one means the mitzvahs, the commandments that we're doing. And the 4th one means avoda means working in the world, actually being in the world and doing work. Like it says, Asher bara Elokim la'asod, because when God created the world, he said God saw that everything that he made and it was good, that God created la'asod, to do. Al manat yosef, la'asod means to fix. God made the world so that we should be in the world and we should fix it. And we should, how do you say, correct the world. L'taken olam b'malchut shaddai. We say it every day 3 times in Aleinu. L'taken et olam tikun olam b'malchut shaddai. You can only do it through the Torah. And the 3rd thing is, what do we say? Torah and avoda, and then we have gamilat chasadim. Gamilat chasadim means a person does chesed, he does kindness with other people. Like it says, olam chesed yibana, the world is made from kindness. Om Chachamim, the rabbis say, gadol gamilas chasadim, that kindness is great, even more than charity. What is charity? Charity you give only with your money. Gamilat chasadim, kindness you do also with your body. You do, just to say a person good morning is an act of kindness. Tzedakah, charity, you only give to people that are poor, that are needy. Gamilat chasadim, you can do for a poor person and to a rich person. Sometimes the rich person, people they get all depressed, they get all messed up. They just, somebody says, good morning to you, how are you, sir? And makes them feel better. It can be sometimes the janitor in the hospital does more for the patients than the surgeons do. Right? The surgeon cuts the guy and he leaves, and the janitor say, how are you, sir? How are you doing? Oh, you look good today. Is there anything I can do for you? Oh, they see somebody cares about them. So that's also gamilat chasadim. That's an act of kindness. That's for everybody. Tzedakah is only when a person is alive can you give charity, but gamilat chasadim, acts of kindness, you can even do to a dead person, escorting the dead person, a dead person, burying him. The Midrash Shmuel that explains that Rabbi Shimon HaTzadik, this Rabbi Shimon HaTzadik, he came to explain why the people of the Knesset HaGadola were so careful. They wanted to leave this message. This is he was the last of the people of Knesset, of the Great Assembly. These 3 things that are Mishnah. Why? Because these are the 3 things that the world stands on, and that was especially the job of the people of the Great Assembly, to strengthen these 3 things. Number 1, Torah. What did the people of the Great Assembly say about the Torah? Remember, look back at the first. They said, make a lot of pupils. Hemiru Talmidim Harbe. Avoda, service of God. What does it say over there? It says, they said, make a fence around the Torah. Make a fence around the Torah. Laws, make the laws. Avoda, we said that there were the laws. And Keneg Gamilah Chasadim, and kindness, it says, you should be calm with people. Calm. When you're judging others, be calm, be patient. More than ashuk miyad ashko. There's no greater kindness than if the judge is just and judge is proper. Then he judges a proper, because a judge, he can take away something that's taken from another person, not according to law. A judge can put it back. On the other hand, the judge can be the worst. The only of the 19 prayers, when we say in Shemon Esrei, we say Haser mimenu yagan v'nacha. Please, God, remove from us our moaning and our despair. Right? We don't say, God, please heal us, heal the sick, and remove from us our despair and our moaning. We don't say, there's only one prayer that we talk about, God, please remove from us our moaning and our despair and our misery. What? What? what they were talking about the judges. Nothing can be worse than a person, he works hard, he has his money, and all of a sudden somebody takes it away from him, not according to law. Everything that he has is gone in one moment. The only thing that can save him is a good judge. That's why it says, and a bad judge can be exactly the opposite. So that's why it says that you have to be mitonim bedin, be calm in judgment. This is the greatest kindness there can be. And that is Pirkei Avos today. Tomorrow we'll do chapter 3. And now we'll learn the Chumash. Chumash. We're learning today Kadoshim. Yesterday we learned the beginning of Achrei Mot, if you remember. Today we're going to learn a little bit about Parshas Kadoshim. That's the beginning. The double portion this week. Okay, yesterday, if you remember, we learned about Achrei Mot. We learned, it seems to be sort of repetitive. Do you remember? It starts off and it makes a statement. It doesn't say anything, doesn't really say very much. What does it say? Remember yesterday we said, God spoke to Moshe. This is Achrei Mot, starts off. God spoke to Moshe after the death of the two sons of Aaron when they sacrificed and they died. And then it says, and God spoke to Moshe and he said, again spoke to Moshe. What does it say? So we explained that yesterday. What it's talking about. A beautiful explanation. Now let's look at Kadoshim, the second of this double portion we learned this week. Now in Kadoshim, there are a lot of commandments here in Kadoshim. There's a lot of commandments in this. What do we say over here? Okay. It's not as in Parshas Ki Teitzei. There's more commandments over there in Devorim. But there are a lot of commandments in this. And here's the first one. Vayadaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. God spoke to Moshe saying, to say. A lot of times when it says God spoke to Moshe, it means to say over to the Jewish people. Say over to the Jewish people. Daber el koladat b'nei Yisrael va'amarta alehem. Speak to all the Jews and say to them. Okay, now this at first glance doesn't really make that much sense. This is very, very repetitive. Now look what it says. 4 times speak. Hashem said to Moshe, God said to Moshe that he should say. Okay, that sort of makes sense. God spoke to Moshe. They tell Moshe to give it over. What did he say to Moshe? Daber el b'nei Yisrael. He just said that. Lay more, to give over. Now it says, speak to all of the Jewish people. And another time, and say to them. What do you have to say so many times to say to them? Lay more, daber v'omarta. Why? What? Kadoshim to you. You have to be holy. Ki kadosh ani, because I'm holy. Hashem Elokeichem, your God. Okay, here we're learning a very interesting thing. First of all, God is telling Moshe the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. A Jew can be holy. A Jew can be holy. A non-Jew can't be holy. And what's the difference between holy and not holy? So holy is not spiritual. Holy means the creator of the spiritual. That we can actually reveal the creator in this world, why everything in this world is being created. Only the Jews can do that. And we're going to see that's the uniqueness of Shabbat. That's why a non-Jew is not allowed to keep Shabbat. Because a non-Jew can't really make the world reveal the creator in the physical world. He can believe there's a creator, he can be devoted to the creator, but he can't really make the world holy. By a non-Jew, there's no such thing as a holy temple, for instance. Holiness means revealing God in the world. They haven't got a Torah that's holy. They can pretend, they can make it, but it's not holy. Holiness. The Jews are a holy people. I'm kadosh. It's kadoshim to you. You have to be holy. That's one of the main things Mashiach is going to do, is he's going to reveal that fact, that the Jews are holy, and he's going to build a holy temple. And that's why that's what's going to make the Jews come back to Israel. Even the Israelis are going to come back to Israel. All the Israelis that left, they'll come back to Israel. Why? Because Jews, they'll realize that they're holy and they want to go to the holy temple The holy temple is a place where you can serve God. That makes you even more holy. Okay, so Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe le'emor, God spoke to Moshe to say, Daber el kol adas ben Israel, speak to all the Jews. Let's look and see Rashi. Daber el kol adat bnei Israel. Moses, speak to all of the congregation of Jews. Melamed, this teaches us, she'omra parsha zu b'hakel. This was said in Hakel. What's Hakel? Once every 7 years, all the Jews would gather together in Jerusalem, and the Kohen Gadol, the king, he would speak to all the Jews, and he would read to them from the Torah. He would read portions from the Torah. And one of the things he would read would be from here, Kadoshim to you. All these forbidden sexual relationships that there are. And also all these other commandments to be holy. The Lubavitcher Rebbe points out that the real idea of being holy means not so much doing the commandments. That's like, a person could look at that and think, see, he's a religious person. People have religion. There's a lot of religions in the world. Holiness is when we act in the world. We're in the world, but we act in the world, in the things that we do normally, how we eat, how we sleep, how we're with our family, how we live, how our house is, how honest we are, how we are in business. The normal things that we do, interpersonal relationships, we do in a totally different way. Even the most physical, normal, seemingly mundane things that everybody just does naturally, as we Jews do it because God wants us to do it. The way we dress, the way we speak, what we look at, what we think, everything is according to the Torah, and realizing that right now, every moment, I am a representative of God, I'm a servant of God, I'm a son of God. So that's what it means to be holy. Says the Rebbe, every Jew has to hear this. Now, the fact of the matter is that all the Jews heard all the Torah. When the Torah was given, so it said that Moses received it from Hashem, and then he learned it with Aaron, and then came the sons of Aaron, and Moshe learned it with them, the sons of Aaron and Moshe. They all came, and then afterwards there came the elders, and then afterwards came all the Jewish people. So Moses taught the Torah over 4 times. One time he taught it over to all the Jewish people. So all the Jewish people heard the Torah already. So why does it say over here that, because it says, say this to all the Jewish people, that this is a sign that's special. This is special. This must be in the Hakel. Hakel was in the holiday of Sukkot. Once a year there would be a big podium, and all the Jews had to come, and the king would read these things to them. Everybody would feel godliness. This is what God wants us to do. So they explain that really it's true. All the Jews did hear at Mount Sinai, but they didn't have to. If a person didn't feel good or whatever it was, whatever reason it was, every Jew didn't necessarily have to come. It wasn't a commandment on Mount Sinai to come. Moses just taught everybody. But they didn't hear it's a commandment. Everyone had to come and listen to these words. That's what he says. The barrel kol ben Israel, all of the Jewish people, kol adas ben Israel, all the Jewish people had to come. It was a positive commandment. What did he say? Kadoshim to you, you have to be holy because I am holy. So a lot of the people that says that there's the Or HaChaim, Pirush on the Or HaChaim on the Torah. Or HaChaim Kadosh, Rabbi Chaim ben Atar. He lived in the same time as the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov said he was more holy than he himself was. The Rabbi Or HaChaim was more holy than the Baal Shem Tov. He asked the question, what's going on over here? What is God saying? What type of a commandment is this? Speak to all the Jewish people and say, everybody comes from all over, they're all there to listen. Be holy because I'm holy. What does it mean, be holy? What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do to be holy? Right? Tell the people what to do, that's all. Tell them what they're supposed to do, and that's what it's supposed to do. People know that they're holy. It's a holy nation. So it says, no, what it means over here, you're going to see there's a lot of these things that come afterwards, and these are forbidden sexual relationships. Right? They're forbidden sexual relationships. and money, monetary things. And so these are negative commandments. There's a lot of negative commandments in this week's Torah portion. If I can just find this book, Sefer, a lot of negative commandments are here. Here it is, here. Let me see how many there are. Here. In this week's Torah portion, there are 38 negative commandments and 13 positive commandments, 38 negative things, 38 things you're not supposed to do. So here he's saying kadoshim to you, it's making also all these things, it's making them into positive commandments also. In other words, by refraining from doing bad things, you make yourself holy. You're doing a commandment of making yourself holy. And this is brought down in the Tanya, I think it's in the 27th chapter. It says that if a person wants to do a sin, but he doesn't do it, the Torah treats it as though he has done a commandment. A person that sits and holds himself back and doesn't do something bad, it's treated as though he's done a positive commandment, like he's done a big mitzvah. And that way you should, I mean, a terrible thing, but you should be happy if you have bad urges or bad thoughts. By just stopping and not doing those things, we're not saying to bring bad thoughts on yourself, thinking about doing sins. But if those thoughts pop into your mind and you withhold yourself and say, this is a stupid thing, I'm not going to do it, remove your mind from it. It's called hesed hadat, that you actually get a positive commandment. That's what it means, kadoshim to you. That's what the Or HaChaim HaKadosh says. So let's see what Rashi says. Kadoshim tihiyu, you should be holy. So this is what the king would say to all the Jewish people. They would all come once every 7 years to Jerusalem. He would make a big podium and he would say these laws. Be holy. Havi perushim me'arayos. Keep away from, what do they call it? Negative sexual things, relationships, forbidden sexual relationships. Umina avera, and from other sins. Shekol makom she'ata motzei geder arva, every place where you find people refraining themselves from forbidden sexual things, ata motzei kedusha, you find holiness. Isha zona v'chalala, like it says, a Kohen is not allowed to marry a woman that is what's called a zona, a chalala, a person who is born from a sexual relationship, or that she has had forbidden sexual relationships with others, etc. Ani Hashem mikadosh, I make you holy. It says, lo yechalel b'zaro, don't make your children, your daughters, into prostitutes. People, they used to sell their daughters. There was a big demand. They would for sexual things are things that are in demand. People would, God forbid, they'd sell their daughters. It says, don't follow this temptation. Don't sell your children for prostitution. It says, Ani Hashem mekadsho, I am God, I make you holy. Kadoshim to you, and this one here, Isha zona v'chalala, etc. So we see that one of the ways of making yourself holy, and like I said, the Or HaChaim said this is even a commandment, making yourself holy is by holding oneself back from doing sins, especially sexual sins, forbidden sexual action, deeds. So here we say an interesting thing, and then we'll go on to learn smicha. Another 5 minutes. Next commandment. Ish imo v'aviv tiro v'et shabtotai tishmoru ani Hashem Elokechem. A man, his mother and his father should fear, and my Shabbatot you should keep. I am God, your God. Okay, there's already a commandment in the 10 Commandments, the 5th of the 10 Commandments. It says you have to honor your mother and father. You have to honor your mother and father. Over there, if you look, it says you have to honor your mother and father. Here, over there, it says you have to honor your father and mother. Kavod et avicha v'et imecha. Honor your father and your mother. Here it says you should fear your mother and your father. Here the mother is first. In the Ten Commandments, the father is first. When he's talking about honoring, it says, honor your father and your mother. And when it's talking about fear, it says you should fear your mother and the father. What's the difference? So let's look at Rashi. Kol echad michem, each one of you. Tir'u aviv v'imo, should fear your father and mother. Zeh pshuta, that's a simple meaning. In the Midrash, en li ela ish, it says a ish imo v'aviv, a man, his mother and father, you should fear. It says clearly only a man, ish. Isha Menayin, how do we know that a woman is also commanded to fear her mother and father? Kishu Omar Tira'u, you should fear them. Harikan Shnayim, there's two. What does it say? Ish et aviv imo tira'u, you should fear, you plural. In Hebrew, there's plural and singular, there's masculine and feminine tense. There's also plural and singular. So it says, you should fear your mother and father. When it says you, it means you all of you. So plural. If so, why does it say in the beginning ish? Why does it say? It should just say aviv imo v'aviv tiro. Why does it aviv? It should say tira'u avicha or avichem or whatever. In the beginning, it says ish singular, imo his mother and his father. And then it says, you, plural, should fear. Why does it say that? Sha'ish sipek biyado lasot. Because a man, he has the ability to do it. Avla isha, but a woman, reshut achereim aleh. A woman, when she is married, for instance, so she's under her husband. So you might think that when a woman gets married, that she doesn't have to honor her mother and father anymore. She doesn't have to honor. So therefore it says, yes, tiro, you both should fear. Why does it say only man? Because a man is more free to do this commandment than a woman. Why does it say imo v'aviv tiro? Kan maktim em. Here it says mother before father, because shelagului lefanav, it is revealed in front of God, shaben, that a boy, a male, a son, yira et aviv yoter mi'imo. A young boy, he fears his father more than he fears his mother. Therefore, here it says, what? Fear, first of all, who? Your mother. In other words, go against your nature. Your nature is to fear your father. Boys fear their fathers more than their mothers. Their mothers talk nice to them, etc. So they're nice to a father, but a boy fears his father. It says, fear your father more. ובכבוד מקדים האב לאם, שזה גילה לעדות, הבן מחבר את אימו יותר מאביו. But it's known that a boy, a young man, whatever, he honors his mother more than he honors his father. Why? She's closer to him. The mother speaks to her son more. So he has more of a relation. He honors his mother and he's afraid of his father. He's awe of his father. He says, therefore, you have to change your nature. The nature of a young man is not to fear his mother so much. So here it says you should fear your mother. The mother is first. Change your nature. On the other hand, by honor, he honors his mother more than his father. So there, in the Ten Commandments, it says honor your father. First of all, it says your father. In other words, the Torah, a big principle in the Torah is to change your nature, to serve God, not necessarily according to what your nature is, what you want to do. Sometimes, yes. If you're a kind person, you like to give charity, you should do it. But the point of the Torah is, avoda means doing things because God wants you to do them. And then after that it says, and keep my Shabbat, samach shmirat Shabbat lahora lemora av. Keeping Shabbat is right next to fearing your father. What's this telling you? Even though you're supposed to fear your father and your mother, af al pi is harticha, that I warned you to fear your mother and father. But im yomulacha, if your mother and father, or your father says to you, chalel et Shabbat, defile the Shabbos, light up a cigarette for me. The father says, you have to honor your father, right? Says, no, al tishmalo, don't. Became b'shar mitzvah, and so it is with all the commandments. Your father has to honor me just like your father has to honor me as well. He also has to keep the Shabbat. So if you're asking a question, should I follow my father against God? So the answer is your father himself should be following God. Your father has no right to usurp God. He can't say, don't keep Shabbat. And this we see that's very common. There's young men that do tshuva, etc., and their parents say, come drive with us on Shabbat, go to someone, they say we can't do it. So here's a very important time when a person has to be nice. You have to be nice and you have to be pleasant, but you have to be firm. A person has to be nice, says, listen, mother, listen, father, I really love you, I really care, I want to, but what can I do? I'm a religious Jew, and I believe this will make the world a better place. Therefore, I'm keeping the Shabbat. The Rebbe Lubavitch has a beautiful sikh about this, and we'll end with this. He says, here it's talking about fearing your mother and father. Your mother and father, what does it bring your mother and father into it? It's talking about education. It's talking about education. A person should fear his mother and father. What does it mean? That he should be taught by his mother and father that he should serve God. His mother and father should be honorable to him, what their actions are and what their deeds, that they have the obligation to educate their children, that they should be a model for their children, that they should be holy. Where do they get this holiness from? From the Shabbat. The Shabbat is a day that's part of the week, one of the 7 days, but it's outside of the days of the week. And that's really the lesson of holiness, that the parents have the obligation to teach their children that they are holy, that they're part of the world, but on the other hand, at the same time, that they're above the world. Their idea of this, put the godliness into the world to be a good example, and the world take it, the example from Shabbat. Shabbat is part of the world, but it's holy, it's outside of the world. That's the idea of the mother and the father, and that is, let's just do the last one. Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am God, your God. Ata v'avicha, you and your father are both obligated to honor me. Lefichach, therefore, lo tishmalo, therefore do not listen to your parents if they tell you to not pay attention to what I say. Ezu mora, what does it mean to fear your father and mother? Fear your mother and father. Lo yeshiva makomo, don't sit in the place of your father. Lo yidaber b'makomo, don't interrupt him. Lo yister devorov, don't contradict your father. Ezu kavod, what does it mean? Giving honor. Ma'achil or mashke, you have to feed them, give them to drink, clothe them. Umanal machnis, umanil machnis umotzi. You have to put their shoes on, you have to escort them out, bring them in, give them honor. Your parents are holy. All the time you have your parents, it's a big gift. I remember once I went somewhere with my father. It was a whole thing. We had to testify in front of something, and there was a policeman, and he said, wow, do I envy you? My father at that time was like 92 years old. So, wow, do I envy, if I would do anything, if I had a father, if I could just have my father back. He almost started to cry. So your parents are very, very precious, but Hashem is even more precious, and your parents also have to realize that. But it's your parents' job to make you realize how important and how precious the creator of the universe is. That's making yourself holy. And now we'll take a 1-minute break and we'll learn smicha. We'll see how long this goes, the smicha. All right, we started basar v'chalav. We're learning the laws of milk and meat. And we learned that God, this is one of the commandments, what they say is called chukim. There's 3 types of commandments in Judaism. There are commandments which are called mishpatim, that you sort of make sense. Don't kill, don't steal. Then there's commandments that are religious. That also sort of makes sense. Keep the Sabbath, Passover. Those are nice commandments. Then there's commandments that make no sense at all. And this is one of them. Now, basically, none of the commandments make any sense, because what does it make any difference to God himself if we, keep Sabbath or we don't keep Sabbath, or we eat on Passover a little cookie or something? What's wrong with that? But all the commandments are basically not understandable. But nevertheless, some of them sort of fit into the category, like we say, of not stealing and not killing. That's sort of, a person can come to that conclusion on his own. And then also keeping the religious holidays. Also, all the different religions have their symbols and their rituals and heritage. But then there are commandments that make absolutely no sense, and they're not religious, and they're not sensible. And one of the big ones is milk and meat. Milk and meat. First of all, there's a lot of laws of milk and meat. That's number one. And number two, there's a lot of laws which make no sense whatsoever. We talked about that yesterday. But this is the will of God. In some way, this is more godly than all the other commandments because you can't see any real purpose in it except you're just doing what God wants. One thing that God does not want is for you to boil milk and meat together. As we said before, it has to be meat that's from either a cow, a sheep, or a goat. All other meat is permissible according to the Torah. Don't do it because it's not permissible according to the rabbis, and the rabbis have made laws because the Torah tells them to make laws. So therefore, the laws of the rabbis have the same importance, same weight as the laws of the Torah do. There are just certain details that the rabbis made to show that there's a difference, that the rabbis made it and not the Torah did. But essentially, the rabbis have the power to make laws because the Torah wants them to make laws. Okay. But let's just talk about the cold, bare bones of this law, and then we can talk about what the Torah said. According to the strict law of the Torah, it is forbidden to boil milk that comes from a cow, a sheep, or a goat, and meat that comes from a cow, sheep, or goat. It's forbidden to boil. We're going to talk about what exactly is boiling. Is frying boiling? Is soaking boiling? We'll talk about this. Number one. Number two, it is forbidden to eat milk and meat that have been boiled. It is forbidden to eat milk and meat. Of course, we're talking about only these three types of milk or three types of meat that have been boiled. Forbidden to eat it. Forbidden. It's forbidden from the Torah. What's the punishment? Beating. It's very difficult to get this punishment. I mean, you really have to try. In order to get beaten or to get killed, murdered, punishable for a crime to be punishable by death, or to be punishable by flogging, you have to really make a big effort in order to get flogged. So let's not, take this a little bit too. It's not so ridiculous in that way. Getting flogged. Why should a person get flogged, beaten, because he just ate cooked up milk and meat? He ate cooked meat. Why? Because first you're going against God. You can't go against God. God creates you. You can do whatever you want to. But in order to get beaten, and the same thing to get punishable, flogging, and be, first of all, you have to have witnesses. Witnesses have to see you actually do it. And the witnesses have to warn you first. And they have to warn you in the proper way. They have to say, don't eat that milk and meat that was cooked together because the punishment is, and they have to get the punishment right, flogging. And you have to answer. Immediately afterwards, you must answer. You have to say, yes, I know, and I don't care. If any one of those things are missing, there's not two witnesses, there's only one witness, or one witness was looking the other way, or the witnesses that weren't at the same time, or one of the witnesses is disqualified, he's not normal, he's one of your family, he hates you. So then there's no punishment. But nevertheless, God is not happy. God is not happy. So let's forget about what punishment you get. God is not happy. What happens if God is not happy? I don't know. I'm not God. Right? Some people eat milk and meat. They eat cheeseburgers all their life, and they're happy, and they're healthy, and they're successful. And there's people that keep kosher, and it doesn't work out for them. Don't ask me questions, but that's the way it is. Nevertheless, we know one thing for sure, no doubt about it. God does not like it if a Jew cooks milk and meat, eats that milk and meat that was cooked, or that anybody cooked, and number three, gets pleasure. You're not allowed to get pleasure from milk and meat that was cooked together. You have a dog, you can't feed him bonzo if that bonzo has milk and meat, little flakes of milk and meat that were cooked together. Can't do it. It's forbidden. You cannot get pleasure from milk and meat cooked together. You have fertilizer for your garden that it was cooked with milk and meat together. We're only talking about these three types of meat and these three types of milk. cow, sheep, and what do I say? Cow, sheep, and goat. Only those three types. They can be intermixed. It can be milk, cow milk with goat meat, etc. But only those three types. That's from the Torah. So it's forbidden, therefore, to cook milk and meat together, to eat milk and meat that was cooked, to eat milk and meat that was cooked together, and to get pleasure from milk and meat that was cooked together. It's forbidden to get pleasure, to sell it, even to give it away. It says you have to throw it in them. All right, let's go. Let's start learning the first law. Ready? Do you have the Sefer? Anybody, you have the books in front of you? Avram Schmidt, Shalom. Do you have your Sefer in front of you? Shulchan Aruch of Rabbi Yosef Karo. Here, let me move it. Should I do like this? Maybe I should do like this. Huh? There it is. Here. Get this cord. We have to have cords. We turn on the lights. You have the light over here. Oh, can you see?
Yeah, I can see. I'm sorry, Rob, I'm not so prepared. I jumped out of some business meeting.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm not so prepared with my Shulchan Aruch and.
Yeah, you must have one in the house. Everybody.
Yes. So
Okay,
we're not actually. We're not. It's not our permanent. We live in Israel, so we've got one obviously in Israel.
Okay, good. So maybe I'll just.
I'll get one. No,
I'll just read it.
about
Anyway, this is it. You know it's there. Okay, ready? Here we go.
Yeah.
You're looking at a person who is looking at the Shulchan Aruch. There we go. Just lighting over here. There we go. Ready? Yes? Oh. There we go. Be'eze basar noheg din basar v'chalav v'heich nikra bishul. Katuv b'Torah, it is written in the Torah, lo tavashel gadi b'chalavimo. Do not boil a young kid in the milk of its mother. Shlosh pa'amim. It says the same sentence 3 times. Lo tavashel gadi b'chalavimo. 3 times in the world. One time we know. Enough. Don't boil and go it in its mother's milk. Enough. One time. Says the Rebbe. No. Says the Rebbe. Says the Shulchan Aruch. One time God is trying to tell us don't boil them together. One time God is telling us don't eat them together. Isra chila. And the third time is telling us not to get pleasure from it. Why doesn't it say just in the Torah clearly, don't boil it, don't eat it, and don't get pleasure from it? What does it have to say? Don't boil it, don't boil it, don't boil it 3 times. Why? Hotzi achila belashan bishol. This transgression, the prohibition of eating milk and meat together. Why does the Torah express it with a language of boiling? Why does it say don't boil a kid in its mother's milk when it doesn't mean that? The second time it means don't eat it. Why doesn't it say don't eat it? Lomar, to tell you, she'eino asur min Torah, it's not forbidden from the Torah to eat it, ella derech bishul, unless it was boiled first. Unless it was boiled first. From the Torah. Although from the Rabbanan, but from the rabbis, asur b'kol inyan, but from the Torah, it is forbidden to eat milk and meat. We'll learn even bird meat. We'll talk about that later. It's forbidden to eat milk and meat. Let's just take it from the sheep, goat, or cow, milk, or sheep, together with sheep, goat, and cow, milk in any way. You want to eat a piece of meat, cow meat, steak, and afterwards eat milk, can't do it. It's forbidden from the rabbis. Afterwards. For sure it's forbidden to do together, even if they're cold or not boiled. For the rabbis, no, can't do it. Now let's get a little bit complicated. Here we go. Kol basar b'chalav. Any milk and meat. She'eno asur min Torah, that's not forbidden from the Torah. For instance, bird meat, we'll learn in a moment. Boiling bird in milk is only forbidden to eat it from the rabbis. If it's only forbidden to eat from the Torah, from the rabbis, to eat bird meat and milk, even if it was boiled together, it's not forbidden from the Torah, only from the rabbis. Muter ba'anod is permissible in pleasure. What does it mean permissible in pleasure? You could sell it to a non-Jew. Sell it to a non-Jew. It's permissible to sell it to a non-Jew. You could give it to your dog. Pleasure. You can get pleasure from it. You can use it for fertilizer in your ground. So only the milk and meat that is forbidden to eat from the Torah is also forbidden from the rabbis. But if it's not forbidden to eat from the Torah, then it's permissible in pleasure. And like I just said, what is forbidden to eat from the Torah? Only if the milk comes from a cow, a goat, or a sheep, and the meat comes from a cow, a goat, or a sheep. So how many permeations do you have there? 6, whatever, cow meat with cow milk and cow meat with this milk. There's only 6 things that are really forbidden from the Torah. 3 combinations, however combinations it is, right? Cow meat together with cow milk and sheep milk and this and goat milk, and then we have goat meat together with the other 3, and we have sheep meat together with the other 3 types of milk. So that's the 3 types. So I guess you have 9 altogether. Let's go to the next law. Let's just learn the Shulchan Aruch. Let's go to the next law. We'll learn another 10 minutes. We're going to go back and go over this. We'll learn the Ber Hete. Maybe we'll learn a little bit of Shach and Taz. We'll see. Shach and Taz, those were commentators. You want a little history, a little bit of the Shulchan Aruch, a little tiny bit of history of the Shulchan Aruch. The Talmud was written something like 300 years after the destruction of the Second Temple. The Second Temple was destroyed. Second Temple was destroyed about 1,000 years after the Torah was given. No, it's more than that. About 1,300 years after the Torah was given, the Second Temple was destroyed. So all this time, from when the Torah was given until the Second Temple was destroyed, the Jewish people knew all the laws. They were passed down orally. Everybody knew what the laws were. If anybody had any doubts, because they all lived in Israel, you had any doubts, you went to a rabbi. There was rabbis all over the place. So everyone knew the laws, and even in the times when Jews they gave up, they got temptations, whatever. Everybody knew all the laws. As soon as the temple, the Rambam look in the introduction of the Rambam. As soon as he realized that the temple was going to be destroyed, they said, "Eit lasot laHashem hefero toratecha." And Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, who was the last of the Tanaim, he gathered together all of the knowledge that he had, all the rabbis, and he wrote down the Mishnah. And then something like 200 years later, they realized that the Mishnayot were being not misunderstood, and there was more and more difficulties, and it was harder to get to the rabbis, and there was a lot of confusion. So they wrote down Ravina, what a Rav Ashi, they wrote down the Talmud. They wrote down the whole Talmud. Before that, there was written the Talmud Yerushalmi, and there was the Talmud Bavli. The Talmud Bavli is the main. But in order, if you wanted to know a law, either you had to know all of the Talmud Bavli, or you had to know someone who knew all the Talmud Bavli. And also you have to remember that printing presses were only invented about 500 years ago from now. Printing presses, back then, the Gutenberg Bible, whatever it is, that was the 500 years ago, something, 600 years ago, not that long ago. And here we're talking about this, the Second Temple was destroyed almost 2,000 years ago. The Babylonian Talmud, that was written like 1,700 years ago, something like that. So for 1,200 years, let's say until there was printing presses, these had to be handwritten and had to be carried around handwritten. Not everybody knew all the laws, what they were. The Jews were scattered around all over the place. There were Jews in the Sephardic places in Egypt and Alexandria and all these places. And there were Jews that were in Spain, Rashi, and these places. And then there was, before that, there were what's called the Gaonim. They were in like Iraq, what's Babylon, what's today. It was like 1,000 years ago. So it was getting a big problem about what to do. You know, there was such tremendous amounts of different opinions and different laws. So came along the Rif and the Rosh and the Rambam. And these three giants, this is like about 900 years ago. This is around the time of Rashi also. These three giants, they were called Rishonim. These three giants, they wrote down all the laws. They went through the Talmud and wrote down all the laws. In a way, the most striking of them, outstanding, was the Rambam. The Rambam, it says, his name was Moshe. It says from Moshe they received the Torah until Moshe ben Maimon, which is like, 2,000 something, like 800 years later. There was never anybody like Moshe. There was never anybody like Maimonides. And he wrote the laws down. Anyway, about something like 400 years after Maimonides, there stood up some great people. There was the Rosh, like we said, the Rif, and those times, and they wrote a book called the Tur. There was the Bala Turim. That was not 400 years ago. That was a little like 200 years after. Yes, about 300 years after the Rambam, there was the Tur, Yaakov Bala Turim. He was the son of the Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher, and he wrote a book called the Tur Shulchan Aruch. And he divided it up into these 4 sections about laws of propriety and the laws of day-to-day things. There was Orach Chaim, and there was Yeridea. That's what we're learning, Yeridea. Laws of mixtures and the laws of Nida, forbidden things. And then there's laws of marriage, that's in Even Ezra, and laws of damages and things like that, that's in Choshen Mishpat. So he wrote these 4 sections. Came along a great man, his name was Rabbi Yosef Cairo HaSfaradi. Maimonides was also a Sfaradi. And Yosef Cairo, he knew everything. All these people knew everything, but there was an angel that used to speak to him. The whole thing was just fantastic. And he wrote an explanation on the Tur called the Beit Yosef. His name was Yosef Cairo. And afterwards, he decided to condense all of his knowledge, and also there were things where he changed his mind a little bit, and he wrote a book called the Shulchan Aruch, and that's what we have here. That's our Shulchan Aruch that we have here. That's called the Shulchan Aruch of Rabbi Yosef Cairo. Rabbi Yosef Cairo was buried in Tiberia, about 3-5 minutes walk from the Arizal. Rabbi Yosef Cairo, the holy, amazingly holy person, Rabbi Yosef Cairo, the whole world goes according to his law. Then after the Rabbi Yosef Cairo, around the same time, there were other great men. One of them, but Ashkenazi. There was Rabbi Moshe Isulis. He's the Ramah. You can see sometimes over here it says the Ramah. He writes in these little Rashi script in the main text. He's in the main text. Let me show everybody what's going on over here. I haven't really caught how to move this thing around, but here we go. Here we go. This is the text we have over here. See, it says over here, the Ramah. That's in the Rashi script. Oh, let me get it straight. There we are. That's called the Ramah, Rab Moshe Islis. And then we have the Taz Turizav. He wrote his commentary. He wrote it first, and then afterwards came the Shach, Rab Shabbatai HaKohen. He wrote it. All right, that's what we're holding now. Right, let's go a little bit further. We're almost out of time. We'll learn 5 more minutes. Law number 2. It says clearly in the Torah, do not boil a kid, a baby goat or whatever, in its mother's milk. That's not so hard to keep. Wait, how do you know? Oh, but on the other hand, how do you know which is the mother? How do you know which is the child? So he said that the Torah is not speaking exactly literally here. The Torah here is giving us a hint. Why it chose to speak this way, that's for Kabbalah, for mysteries. Nevertheless, it's not the Torah speaking. This is God himself speaking. And God says, don't boil a kid in its mother's milk. Says, Gedi lav davka. When God says a kid, it doesn't mean a kid, a baby goat. Dehu adin shur v'seh. It's forbidden to boil even a big ox in the milk of a goat. Lo shana b'chalav, and when it says milk, it doesn't make any difference to the milk of its mother. O shana b'chalav acheret, or other type of milk. It can be milk from a goat, and you can't boil in it a sheep or a cow. Why did the Torah then say don't boil a goat in its mother's milk? Dibra katuv b'havos, because the Torah was just speaking in a common situation. How will you find milk and meat together? A baby is born, the mother has milk to give to the baby, right? So it's there, it's available. There's milk there available because It's whatever is, it's udder is filled with milk to give to the baby, and here we got some meat, and you're also hungry. So here we go, right? And you shecht it, you know how to shecht it properly, and there you are. That's just the way that things presented themselves, but it didn't mean only in this case. It means in all cases. You cannot boil, eat, or get pleasure from milk and meat of any combination of these three things, even from milk from a young cow with an old ox. Same thing. Gimel. Eino noag ela basar behema tahora b'chalav behema tahora. It is only in these three behemoths, like we said, all the others, not birds, not fish, and not impure animals like camels and things like this. So let's say, I'll give you an example. A non-Jew says, do me a big favor. I haven't got any arms. Light the fire underneath my pot. I really want to eat. I'm really hungry. You have to say to him, what is in the pot? If he says milk and meat, then you have to say what type of milk and what type of meat. If he says that the milk comes either from a cow, a goat, or a sheep, and the milk comes from the cow, goat, or sheep, and the meat also comes from either one of those three, then you have to say, I'm sorry, Mr. Goy, I can't light the fire underneath. Can't do it. If he says that the meat comes from a camel, or the milk comes from an impure animal, a horse, if any one of those ingredients comes from an unkosher animal, I'm not talking about treif animal, we're talking about an animal that was killed by roadkill or something. If the animal is a goat, a sheep, or this, and you can't eat the milk of the meat together, you can't boil it together. But if it was a camel or a dog or a sheep, whatever they is, a rabbit, so that it is, yes, permissible for you to light the fire underneath it. Of course, it's not permissible for you to eat it because you're not allowed to eat not kosher food. Some people, there's the Bach, we'll see that he says, learn about that later. It's only, this law is only relevant if the milk and the meat come from tahor animals that are, permissible animals. They don't necessarily have to be permissible to eat. Like I said, if there was roadkill or something like that, then it still is forbidden. But the animal itself has to be an animal that it's either a goat, a sheep, or a cow, and the milk has to be one of these three. But if it's what we call permissible meat in forbidden milk, or basar tamea, or if it is forbidden milk, there is milk that comes from an impure animal, a goat, a camel, whatever we said. In chalav tahora, in permissible milk, if one of them is not, then it's mutter, it's permissible to boil, and it's permissible to get pleasure from also. Basar chayav oaf, what about meat from a deer? It's permissible to eat deer, but it's not called a behema, it's called a chaya. What about a bird meat, chicken meat? Afilu b'chalav tahora, even to boil them, you can boil them, even l'chadchila, boil them, muter b'bishul b'hana. Now we're going to learn a little later this thing about marit ayin. It doesn't look good, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. Ela midrabanan, about dagim. But what about fish, the chagavim, and what about locusts? Now I know that people don't eat locusts, you don't eat locusts, but the fact of the matter is locusts are permissible to eat. In the end of Parsha Shmini, we learned 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Shmini, it talked about the chagav and these are locusts that are permissible to eat. And I've never seen anybody actually eat them, but I've seen people that say that they do eat them. There's Yemenites and there's also Moroccan Jews that they say that they know which they are and they know how to prepare them and everything. In any case, these animals, if they're permissible to eat, if you can figure out which ones it is, and if you can bear eating one of things like these, then it's easy because you don't have to slaughter them. You don't have to slaughter them. And by an Isser afilu min rabbanan, there's no Isser even from the rabbis. You're allowed to cook them together, and you can't eat them together. And now we're going to have a little bit of a law, what's called marit ayin, what looks bad. Shalom Natanel. Nahagu lasot chalav. Some people make milk Michalev shkedim, from almonds. You ever see it done? You ever do it? I've seen it done. You take almonds, you put them in one of these fast grinders, let it go for a while, and it looks like milk afterwards. Looks more. No, why do they want to do that? Because they want to fool people. They want to would it be a sensation? A manichim ba basar oaf, and they put in it chicken meat. You go to the bar mitzvah, whatever, and says, "What is this, Rabbi?" The rabbi said, "It is almond milk." You can, everyone will remember this bar mitzvah, right? This is the bar mitzvah where the rabbi put chicken and almond milk. Says, that was almond milk. I didn't eat it. I feel so bad. Hoyel ve'eno rak midrabanan, because it is only from the rabbis. Bird meat and regular milk is only from the rabbis. But basar behema, but if you want to put behema meat into almond milk, says the Ramah, Rab Moshe Islis, the Ashkenazic rabbi, yesh la niach etzel hachalav, then you have to put, if you want to put cow, sheep, or goat meat into the almond milk, then you have to put next to this whole mixture that you have regular almonds. Why put almonds? Because everyone will say, why are those almonds next to that forbidden mixture? And you'll say, forbidden mixture, really? Watch this. Sha'akol niyad, and you drink it, and everybody says, Rabbi, what did you do? Said, you want to know why I put those almonds there? Because it's almond milk. That's why I wanted you to ask. Because of marit ayin, because of the appearance of the eye. Kamosh ba'ir, like it's going to be learned later on. So in other words, so the people won't think that the rabbi is either flipped out, or maybe he's found a more lucrative reform congregation or something. You don't think that, so you put, if you want to put regular meat in your almond milk, put little almonds there. There's a similar law that says that fish blood is forbidden to eat. It's permissible to eat, I'm sorry. Fish blood is permissible, it's forbidden to eat blood, but fish blood you can eat. But if you're some sort of a weird, who knows who have the thing that you want to eat fish blood, if you're such a third person like that, and there's all sorts of people in the world, I mean, you probably already know. You want to eat fish blood, so you have to put scales in the blood. So everybody knows that it is blood from a fish, and it is not cow blood. That is what we call, why do you have to do that? Marit ayin. You have to worry about what people will think about you, and we'll talk about that, God willing, tomorrow. Thank you very much. God bless you all.